Senate Concurrent Resolution 205, honoring Aleksander Reed Skarlatos for his heroism and service.
Question now rises upon final consideration of SCR 205. Representative Hurd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, today I rise in support of SCR 205 to honor an American hero and a fellow Oregonian. We are so fortunate to have real heroes who live amongst us in our families, as friends, and in our communities. Today, as Oregonians, we have the distinct privilege and honor to honor a real hero who hails from my community in Roseburg. Alex Skarlatos is the son of Emmanuel Skarlatos and Heidi Hansen. He graduated from Roseburg High School in 2011 and later joined the Oregon National Guard in 2012. In 2013, he was deployed to Afghanistan, where he served for 9 months, and later, going forward, in August of last year, many of you I'm sure are aware of the attempted terrorist attack on the train bound for France that Alec and a couple of his childhood friends were there to stop, a tragedy avoided. So just some background on that incident. Skarlatos and his two childhood friends were on a European trip, and they were on their way to France when suddenly a 25-year-old Moroccan man armed with an AK assault rifle with 270 rounds and a box cutter stood up and began to go into his terrorist attack. At that point, Skarlatos took action with his friends. They confronted the man. They beat him into submission, took his arms from him, and held him there until authorities could take care of the situation. A great moment of heroism. I'd like to think that we are all capable of such heroism, but we really don't know unless we're faced with a situation like that. Strangely enough, when I was on a flight to go visit my in-laws this last December, a couple days after Christmas, I was sitting on this plane. We were on a connection flight. My wife and my son and I were to Salt Lake, and my wife leaned over to me and whispered in my ear. She says, "Hey, I think that's Alex Skarlatos from the terrorist train attack in France, sitting right next to us there. He was on the other side of the aisle from me." And I said, "Really?" I'll admit I hadn't paid attention enough at that point to catch, his face if I glanced across it. And I said, well, maybe I'll ask him. So I asked him. It was him. I introduced myself, explained who I was, and, what do I do up here in the state capitol. And I just wanted to know who he was. It was a great opportunity, I felt like, a really unusual one, if you ask me. And here I am today getting to be the carrier for this resolution. So, I talked with him for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I'll tell you what was really unique and amazing about him. In today's culture in America, it's unfortunately becoming a culture that seems to praise and promote arrogance at times, whether it's great athletes, people of power, great success, what have you. And I fear that a lot of good is lost because of that promotion of that arrogance. I, for one, and I know many of you feel the same, that when you have that kind of ability and that kind of a podium, if you can contain the human nature, which is to go towards arrogance, to go towards, I'm so great, I'm a hero, look at me, and you stay more in that humble frame of mind and heart, you can get so much good done that otherwise you couldn't. And I feel like Alex Skarlatos, in the time that I got to spend with him on that plane and in the conversations I've had since, that he is the kind of man of character that no matter what life puts at his feet, he will manage it and handle it properly and do the most with it. I was blown away, frankly, when he told me he was 23. I asked him how old he was. I figured he was older than me. He's only 23 years old and yet has such maturity, courage, intelligence. He can articulate himself extremely well. Clearly, he's had great parents. He's the kind of man that I would like to think my son will be someday. He's the kind of man I want to be today. So it's with great pride that I get to carry this bill today. And I hope you will join me with a unanimous vote of approval. And finally, just so you know where he's at, he would like to have been here today, but again, being a servant of the people, he is currently attending leadership courses with the National Guard, constantly doing the people's work. I mean, This gentleman has a lot of opportunities waiting for him if he just wants to exploit it, but instead he'd rather be serving us with the National Guard. He was on Dancing with the Stars. He was currently on a tour around the country. That's why I met him on that plane. But yet he's back here in Oregon with the National Guard. Truly an amazing individual. So when the final vote's cast, I hope you'll stand with me and give him a passionate applause.